Madrid. Just one of the cities where international gangsters have been passing themselves off as diplomats from the self-styled Principality of Sealand. It may be just an old gun platform off the Essex coast, but bogus diplomats have been using it as cover for selling fake documents and money laundering. Police believe the Russian mafia could be behind the scam, and they're involved in a multi-million-pound deal to send arms from the former Soviet Union to terrorist factions in Sudan. It's shaping up to be the trial of the century in Madrid. Bill Bond is a journalist who's been working in Spain for 30 years, and he's been following the case closely.
Buenos días.
¿Qué va a ser?
Dos capítulos.
Muy bien.
It all started when Spain's paramilitary police, the Guardia Civil, broke up a gang which had been selling adulterated and highly explosive petrol.
As a result of that, they arrested several people, and one of them suddenly produced a Sealand passport and diplomatic passport and screamed diplomatic immunity. So the police were somewhat miffed by this, immediately contacted the Foreign Office and said, what do we do about this? They quickly replied, there's no such place, this does not exist, it's not recognised by any country in the world, and of course the man did not have diplomatic immunity. He was arrested.
The Guardia Civil realised a gang of criminals were passing themselves off as Sealand diplomats and selling fake documents to anyone who'd buy them. And it wasn't just passports that were on offer.
Medical qualifications from the so-called University of Sealand. How would you feel being operated by a doctor in some third world country with that as his only medical qualification?
There is, of course, no University of Sealand, but the Spanish police did raid the so-called Embassy of Sealand. There were plenty of passports on offer. Outside there were even 2 cars with diplomatic plates. They were seized, along with boxes of documents. Among the papers seized were false passports, false driving licenses and fake university degrees. The standard of forgery can be very low. This so-called diplomatic ID card, for instance, is littered with simple spelling and grammar mistakes. But they're clearly good enough to confuse many people who aren't fluent in English. There are letters here from the governments of Syria, China and Pakistan, among many others, all addressed to the Principality of Sealand. The Spanish authorities launched a top-secret operation to infiltrate the gang. They recruited a former Argentine intelligence officer who went so deep undercover he ended up as the deputy defense attaché. What he uncovered was a web of organized crime.
Prostitution, drugs and weapons. They are the 3 basements of the mafia activities in Russia.
So the Sealand operation was involved in all those activities?
Yeah, sure.
But that's not all. Roberto claims there's a connection with the Russian mafia, who were using the Sealand embassy in Spain as a front for arms smuggling on a massive scale.
We have MiG-27, SAM-7, RPG-7, Semtex is an explosive used also by the IRA, like C4, like the C4 from DuPont. Also AK-47, Kalashnikov AK-45, and ammunitions and spare parts, you know, for the planes and so. And we have the detail, the number, the instructors, the Russian instructors who are in this position to go to the country.
It seems incredible that a disused gun platform just 7 miles from Harwich can be at the centre of all this. But Spanish paramilitary police say that Sealand's identity has been hijacked.
These people have been trying to import arms, including helicopters, planes and ammunition to a value of £36 million. If they're operating with arms, we cannot rule out the drug cartels. Our inquiries indicate one of the diplomats is Russian.
We asked Roberto to take us to his old embassy. As we arrived, they were moving out. So this was the embassy of Sealand?
This was the embassy of Sealand.
We wanted to speak to one of the diplomats. What's happening is that we know that Mr. Palacio, who is the Minister of Justice in the so-called Principality of Sealand, is upstairs in the old embassy now. So we're trying to get upstairs and have a word with them. But I don't think they want to let us in. Here's the concierge coming up. Can we go? Can we come up?
Que no te abre la puerta.
No se escucha aquí.
Can we come up and see him now?
Que no abre la puerta.
No te abre. Si voy yo y yo le llamo.
No, si es que...
We saw him at the window.
Jefe, jefe.
We tried telephoning, but again there was no joy. Well, Mr. Palacio is not answering his phone, and yet we know that he's up there. We've seen him through the window. So I guess he's not going to give us an interview. So far, the Guardia Civil have arrested 2 people and are still investigating another 60. The Spanish inquiry may be the first to go public, but it's unlikely to be the last. All the evidence is that the Madrid connection is just one thread in a web of deceit spreading right around the globe, with Sealand at its centre. And it is on Sealand that the sense of outrage is most keenly felt.
Absolutely horrific. I mean, we first heard about it, we read it in the Telegraph, and we were in Spain at the time, so we know nothing about it.
I wish we could have them here to deal with them ourselves.
What would you do with them?
Well, we have serious choices, haven't we? We could hang them, we could imprison them, or we could throw them over the side. But we would punish them, that's for sure.
But the Bates aren't the only ones to be upset by developments. Intelligence officers around the world are wondering why the British allow Sealand to exist when it's so obviously being abused by international criminals.
For me, I have 30 years experience in undercover activities. For me, it's more bizarre that the MI5 don't know nothing about that and don't do nothing about that.
But some of Britain's best legal brains say there's not much the UK can do, because on the face of it, Sealand is independent.
There are 3 tests to determine whether a place is an independent state. The tests are, is there an identifiable place? Is there an identifiable people, a population? And is there an autonomous sovereign government? And the answer to those questions in respect of Sealand are yes, yes and yes. Plus, there have been at least 2 occasions when the British government and the law courts have, through officials concerned with them, recognised Sealand as an independent state.
But the Bates don't rely on the courts to defend them. They have their own squad of armed men guarding their fortress.
Well, every country in the world had its own defence force, and we have a lot of very expensive equipment here, and we have been attacked in the past.
What sort of weapons do you have then?
Well, I can't really tell you that for us security.
You reckon you can look after yourself though?
What do you think?
Tonight, the weapons are being used to protect millions of pounds worth of computer equipment. An American company wants to develop Sealand as a high-tech communications centre. This would get round a British government bill allowing the security services to intercept emails.
We located here because it was a very small country in which we could sit down with the government and guarantee that the rules were ideal for doing e-commerce business. As far as trying to get around the laws of other countries, that's not really pertinent. We're just doing business in a global medium in a country that has the most favorable laws.
But despite allowing the cyber specialists in, Roy, Prince of Sealand, wants to maintain good diplomatic relations with Britain.
I want to be a friend of Britain. I don't want to be an enemy of Britain, and I won't give anybody a way to do anything here which might embarrass or annoy England.
So the government is now facing a twin threat to its authority. One from the computers on the platform, the other from gangsters like the Russian mafia, who've adopted the cover of Sealand diplomats. Either way, it's a problem that Britain's security services could find hard to ignore. As for the buccaneering Bates family, they just want to be left in peace to pass Sealand on to the next generation. Their private army aim to see that they do.